Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back on another video from Clyde. A lot of you have been leaving this in the comments for a while, and it's a long video, so like I have to give myself a couple of days to like prep for it so I can still keep videos up every day. So if there's not any videos up after this, that's why. Anyway, this is Mugetsu Ichigo. He's way stronger than you think. So Mugetsu Ichigo is the version of Ichigo that like nearly kills Aizen, isn't it? It's like he doesn't quite get there, but he loses all his. He can only use it once, and then bam, it's gone. And for him to be able to do that to Aizen in the form that Aizen was in is like, that's really truly impressive. But let's see what Clyde has to say on how strong this form of Ichigo actually is, shall we?
If there's one thing Mr. Kubo is good at, it's creating intricate, detailed, genuinely unique designs for his characters, the transformations, and the abilities they use. Although
They definitely stand out.
His writing is underrated in various ways, and his greatest flaw, if you can even call it a flaw, is that he either makes his storytelling way too vague for the audience and up to the individual reader's interpretation, or he misuses some of the coolest characters in the series, which have so much potential more than they were shown to be.
Yeah.
It is, however, truly undeniable how talented he is at creating special-looking characters that are genuinely pleasing to the human eye. And with that being said, today's video will be dedicated to two of the coolest designs he ever created, Dangai Ichigo and the final Getsuga Tensho.
It looks so amazing.
In today's video, I'm going to explain and clarify a lot to do with these forms.
Cool.
So if you're this far through the video, please give the video a thumbs up, as it does.
Link will be in the description for the original video. Go there, leave a like there, and if you're not subscribed to Clyde's channel, subscribe there. If you love Bleach stuff, Clyde's all over it, man. He's amazing.
Continue to support Bleach by making plenty of content in the future. We're also close to 150,000 subscribers.
Sweet.
So it would mean a lot if you did subscribe. I believe it goes without saying that these two forms of Ichigo are easily the most contentious, but also the most interesting in the series. Ichigo's power feels different than before. He doesn't feel like a Soul Reaper, a Hollow, or a human.
No, he feels like something more.
Like an anomaly that was placed into Bleach from a different series. It almost has a Super Saiyan 3 feel.
Yeah, I give him that.
Ultra Instinct level of aura, as Ichigo has done this weird type of training that only happened due to pure coincidence. That
the hyperbolic time chamber thing.
And he also appears in a stage that is beyond Bankai with his Zanpakuto fused.
It's incredible.
This is unironically hyperbolic time chamber Ichigo, with his long emo-looking 2000s anime hair as if he came straight out of a Bring Me the Horizon session before coming to fight Aizen, his edgy expression on his face, an improved physique, and his power that can't even be sensed by the villain. This is stoicism incarnate. Like, these two forms on the screen, it's almost like heaven and earth in how different they feel in strength when you actually look at them. And it's insane because although this Ichigo is being nerfed by his inner conflict over his previous battles with the Espada and genuine fear over Aizen's Silver Surfer mode,
Silver Surfer mode.
Sense Aizen's power, whereas Ishin, Urahara, and Yoruichi cannot.
They can't,
Ishin
yeah.
even
It's like,
states
whoa.
only those in the same realm of power as Aizen's current level would be able to sense it.
So
Gin makes an interesting offhand comment about his current form being, quote, incomplete. Even Captain Aizen would be disappointed in you right now. And you sensed it, right? Meaning he was close to becoming a transcendent being, even while in that Bankai form.
Oh, right, okay, cool.
Zenkai boost from all of his battles with the Espada. Literally, the only times Aizen can be sensed are when he lowers his spiritual pressure to play with his food when he's
just mess about with them, yeah.
And when Ichigo appears in his Dangai form, which explains why Tatsuki can sense him. This is really a big deal, as Ishin's statement was made about a form of Aizen that is 2 transformations weaker than the one Dangai Ichigo faces off against when he appears. It should also be noted that Aizen only took damage in this battle here because he was fighting while not on guard.
Yeah, he wasn't paying attention, yeah.
And testing out his new powers. When he did decide
Let's see what I can do now.
Power, however, he literally one-shot every single one of them. From Deus Ex Machina to Arspool to quote-unquote writing himself into a corner with Aizen, these forms are both confusing and random, plus very odd, as they only appear for such a short
Yeah, and they never come back either.
It gives you a degree of uncertainty that makes you go, yo, I actually wonder how this form of Ichigo would do against the high.
Yeah, in the war, yeah.
Or, hey, do you reckon Dangai Ichigo could solo Marineford by himself? Because it just feels that powerful when shown to us readers and watchers, especially with the way it dominates the villain who was already, in his base form, too hard to deal with, let alone
for everybody anyway, yeah.
Transcendent form forms he went into with weird measures, 100-year-long plans, and manipulating the Hogyo,
Okay, yeah.
an object which
It's like,
has
what?
immeasurable power
Then
and
Ichigo just slaps it away.
physics to reach this stage. And then you consider all those facts and how much trouble Aizen went through just to get to this stage, considering he was a guy that was already insanely strong. And Ichigo just surpasses all of it. Which
Just slaps him away.
Feeling I mentioned. And then on top of all of that, he can transform into another form above that, which makes the Dangai form and the villain look even less imposing.
Yeah, it's like the weaker than that. Okay. God, yeah.
Aizen states Ichigo is a dimensional tier above him, making him fifth dimensional. I believe the best way to start this video is to address the most common misconception I see when Mugetsu is brought up, which is the controversial statement made by Aizen during their fight. All Aizen is stating during his inner monologue is that Ichigo is so far above him in power that he believes that's a good way to explain what he is viewing before his very eyes. Now you could definitely argue author intent here, as Mr. Kubo did get Aizen to make this statement and there's a lot of emphasis on it. However, we do see that Aizen ends up reaching another level of power right here, but he is sealed before he can actually utilize this power.
Right.
And he claims that this newfound power will eventually surpass Ichigo.
Oh God.
What you see in the war is the level of power Aizen would have hypothetically reached.
Yeah, he does a lot just sitting in a chair, man.
It's another conversation entirely. And although he didn't transform into some weird alien-looking form again,
was weird.
his body passively reached that level mentioned while he is in the Mugen. Ichigo in his Dangai form was partially fused with his Zanpakuto, then he completely fused with it in his Mugetsu form, just like how Aizen did at the end of the battle, and then appeared in the war completely fused with his Zanpakuto. This isn't me making a claim that Mugetsu and War Aizen are comparable in any facet, because their ways of reaching complete fusion was achieved via different methods.
Yeah.
There's a lot of contradictory statements in the manga from both sides of the argument.
You can't really compare it.
Aizen is so shocked in this moment because he went from being completely infatuated with his newfound level of power, which surpassed Hollow and Soul Reaper, and he believed not a single person
No one could
in
hurt him, yeah.
society was his equal now, to being completely overwhelmed.
Yeah,
by
like, whoa, what's going on?
Aizen had contingency plans set up for Yamamoto, as he was aware of the threat that he would be in Dangai. He purposely left Kenpachi in Hueco.
Yeah, he had certain people on the list, didn't he?
His first two forms of the Hogyoku, he has absolutely zero fear in anyone being able to match him. To him, he was already in an entirely different league above the Shinigami, so to see someone else beyond his own power was dumbfounding, especially when just earlier
It's like
that same
completely
day, he had
unbelievable,
seen
isn't it?
Ichigo in a much weaker state. This is why he was so confused. If Ichigo truly were an entire dimensional tier above Aizen, why was it so easy for Aizen to continuously close that gap in power?
Keep
with the
getting
Hogyoku?
stronger, yeah.
If he truly were a dimensional tier above him, as he even describes, he wouldn't even be able to react or comprehend Ichigo's existence. A being that is a complete dimensional tier above you would be almost impossible to even
Yeah, you wouldn't even comprehend it,
We've
yeah.
also seen that even when Aizen transformed mid-battle against Dangai Ichigo, the most that he could do was burn his arm, and you could even make consistent arguments that the only reason this happened was because Ichigo was not taking him seriously.
Yeah, he was slapping around, messing with him like he was... Yeah, bam, see ya.
Though if we do for a second say that this statement is factually correct, as Kubo did make Aizen say this in the manga, it would be consistent with the statement from the data book Unmasked, which thanks to Seth the programmer was translated saying the following.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
The ultimate technique in which the user becomes Zongetsu. Although it possesses a power that far exceeds everything, its cost is that the user loses their
spiritual power. Yeah, right, okay.
This is from the official Bleach data book Unmasked. This would also be consistent with the scaling.
So that's really good at like finding stuff and translating in that. He did it for the what was that other video? That Hunter video. Was it Hunter video? Oh, I can't remember. He did it anyway.
Also perfectly with Aizen being so strong that he can one-shot a being that doesn't operate via the laws of physics or by that of spiritual pressure, but actually the idea of reason. This means Aizen is at the level where he doesn't need to just defeat someone physically or with raw spiritual pressure. He can wipe them from existence.
Just
like
gone.
Ichigo's ability that allows him to control the concept of a name and the power associated with that name. This would also consistently line up with statements made about the Sokyoku, which is stated to be able to overwhelm everything in existence, along with various other dimension destroyers.
There's a lot of statements out there though in Bleach, isn't there, where it's like, what?
Power scaling at this stage in 2020, saying things like this should pretty much be the norm, but I feel like I have to hold back when I do talk about this stuff, even though there is a massive preponderance of evidence that proves that characters of this level and this caliber in general are getting to some insane feats.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous.
Being quick and being able to hit really hard.
Quick and hard, man, yeah.
A, truly dimensional tearing, and Mugetsu is an absolute monster of a character alongside all of the supporting evidence that proves such, or B, Aizen is using over-exaggerated science language to describe the strength of someone he just can't fathom.
I mean, there is that.
Remember the time when Uryu sensed Ulquiorra's second release spiritual pressure, and he claimed that it was alien-like? I won't be making any objective claims here, but I guess try to be logical about the Aizen statement, and think for yourselves what seems more realistic with the evidence I've provided. I'm going to keep this part relatively short.
Who would win? Vasto, Lorde, Ichigo, or Dangai Ichigo?
But Dangai Ichigo absolutely destroys Vasto, Lorde, Ichigo. Like, I shouldn't even really have to say that, but you would be surprised as to how many people ask me this.
Oh, that's interesting. Really?
This match up in my comment section on Bleach-related videos, and the countless times that the chat has brought it up on my Twitch streams when I talk about Bleach and power scaling. Let me just run through a few things to explain this in a very simple
That's strange.
The hollow inside of Ichigo is the manifestation of his Shinigami powers. As when Ichigo was born, White, who had fused with Misaki, was then birthed into Ichigo when he was born. Thus, when the Shinigami powers given to him by Rukia were taken away, his Asuchi ended up becoming the hollow inside of him. Or in another sense, it was always going to be this way. As you can argue, Ichigo's father being a Shinigami means by default he would eventually learn how to become one.
Yeah.
Old man Zangetsu also tells Ichigo that he always had the ability to become a Shinigami, though the Shinigami powers lay dormant until Byakuya removed Rukia's Shinigami powers from him. Normally, Shinigami have their own unique spirits inside of them, and they represent their Shinigami powers, but Ichigo's case is special as he was born with a hollow inside of him before he activated his dormant
He had a little bit of everything, didn't he?
And because the hollow inside of Ichigo was already made up of a Shinigami soul, he appeared as his Asuchi. It's very weird, but it does make sense.
Yes, it is
if we were
weird.
to say, hypothetically take a look inside of Shinji's inner world, he would have a Zanpakuto spirit and a hollow inside of him, because he was hollowified after he was already a full-fledged Shinigami, whereas with Ichigo,
he had the hollow first.
Anywho, I'm
Right.
bringing this up because when Ichigo speaks to Zangetsu, who we later find out isn't actually his Asuchi and is the physical representation of his Quincy powers,
Which is really, like, what?
his inner world. Well, this man known as Zangetsu actually rips White out of Ichigo and makes him appear not just as a hollow, but as the complete full Shihakusho form of him.
Which is so cool. That looks amazing.
They fuse together into a hybrid of the two. It's basically the fusion dance, and with 3 straight months of training added on top of it to make it even stronger. When Ichigo fights Ulquiorra in his Vasto Lorde form, he is being completely controlled by White.
Yeah, he's like rage. He's God. He's blinded by it.
Unable to restrict White, and White was helping Ichigo to win his battles when he was struggling. Mr. Kubo even draws a sketch at the end of the transformation chapter symbolizing that White has not only taken control as the horse when the king has fallen, but not even his Shinigami badge can contain this strength.
Right,
This
that's cool.
actually explains why Bankai Ichigo is so strong when he appears in Karakura Town and can actually sense Aizen, whereas many individuals who were previously much stronger than Ichigo actually couldn't. At that moment in time, he isn't being restricted. This is unironically a pretty impressive feat for first form Yami when you really think about what's going on. And look, granted, he did fight Ichigo with only half of a Shuhakusho on. In fact, it was actually less than half of a Shuhakusho. Him still being able to compete with this Ichigo with half of a Shuhakusho on, and also the mask being notably heavier than usual, it's still pretty good for Yami because it makes his first form look good, but it also isn't inconsistent because you would think, so does that make Byakuya and Kenpachi also transcended at this stage? Like, that sounds a bit weird, right? But when you think about it, first form Yami, Kenpachi, and Byakuya, right? They all scale directly to half Shuhakusho Ichigo with a new mask that's amped by the badge not being in place.
Yeah, the badge ain't there, so he ain't got anything holding him back, yeah.
And then you have second release Yami, who would then get a massive increase of anywhere from 10 plus times, right? So it's pretty consistent, but it's also, like, really impressive for characters like Yami, Kenpachi, and Byakuya to all be around that ballpark of power, and it does explain why Aizen did purposely leave Kenpachi.
We kept them out, yeah. It's like, don't want them messing about with us.
And in Karakura Town, they actually have the confidence that Ichigo will be able to defeat Aizen. Some might say this is only because he isn't under the influence of Kyoka Soigetsu.
Yeah, he's not under his Bankai, like, well, not Bankai, but his, yeah, because you don't see Bankai during all this thing.
If you have doubts surrounding the legitimacy of these sketches at
The
the end of
illusionary
the chapter,
techniques
Mr.
that
Kubo uses them quite
Aizen
a
has.
lot to drop hints to the audience. He uses them to show a lot of symbolism.
Why are they dressed like
series,
pirates?
He even uses them to tell the story. As he
So
actually
weird.
drew a
Japan's
sketch
weird.
of Lorde being saved from falling to her death by Uryu firing an arrow into her clothing, which later on ends up being shown in the anime. Imagine you take this full Shihakusho Ichigo and White, and you fuse him together with his Quincy Powers.
Jeez.
Now at this stage, the fake Yuha bark is yet to show anything crazy when it comes to power, but even an elephant versus an elephant with an ant on its back is still stronger than the aforementioned elephant. To further explain
Right, okay, that's quite
Ichigo
interesting.
trains with these two for 3 months inside of his inner world. Not only is this a really cool stamina feat, as Ichigo is taking damage in real time during the meditation and training, but Isshin also has to hold the Dangai open for that entire time.
So cool.
Isshin actually confirms that
Let's make our own hyperbolic time chamber.
operates rather differently than the outside world. Time is 2,000 times denser inside the Dangai. In other words, if you trained in here for 2,000 hours, only an hour would pass on the outside. The Soul Society has no way of containing Kototsu, but there is a way to stop the Koryu. This is called Kaikyo Kote, also known as boundary fixation in English. It usually takes several dozen low-level Soul Reapers pouring in their spirit energy by means of a special technique to hold Koryu in place. But I can do all that by myself. I'll hold Koryu until I run out of spirit energy. I think I can do it for about 2,000 hours.
Jesus Christ, that's a lot of hours.
During this training, they are not only slowly becoming one in their powers, but they are getting insanely stronger in such a short period of time. The Vasto, Lorde, and Ukiura could be sensed and felt, but Dangai Ichigo couldn't at all. Not even by Aizen's Hogyoku monster form. If Ichigo were to hypothetically transform into his Vasto Lorde form here after the training, without transforming into his aged Dangai form, rather than here, the Vasto Lorde form would be stronger than when it fought Ukiura. You see, Aizen was actually anticipating Ichigo to awaken his Vasto Lorde powers, or even control them, and was not only looking forward to fighting this form, but he was hoping that Ichigo would just, in general, reach a new level of power.
Yeah, it's like, I want to fight someone that I could, like, test my powers against. I planned everything from the beginning.
Bring out his powers in battle, which he references to Ichigo. Aizen knew the strength of the previous White from everything but the rain, and that it wasn't actually strong enough at the time, but he expected the evolved version to be strong enough to contest him. There was even a plan made by Aizen to kill Ichigo's friends, then hang their bodies outside of Karakura Town for him to find them.
Jeez.
He wanted to torture Ichigo into becoming stronger.
Like, I want to make him angry, man. Show me that rage, boy.
About it, because while Aizen is on his Death Wish mission to make the Oaken, then destroy the Zero Division and the Soul King, the entire time he is hoping for Ichigo to ascend and be a threat to him, which Gin even talks about. Just like the Yami feat I briefly mentioned earlier, this
it's so weird, and it's like, I could take over the universe, but I really want to fight Ichigo first.
Fully aware that he actually had the form, as this means Aizen gave it to him purposely in advance to help develop and bring out Ichigo's Lorde form. When he leaves with Gin and Tosen to go to Karakura Town, he purposely leaves Wako Mundo, Orihime, and Ichigo all part of Ukiura's responsibility, and he trapped Kenpachi Yami, who was the secret Zero all along. At this stage in time, there's way too much supporting evidence and narrative consistency to doubt Ukiura and Yami were the two strongest Espada. Anywho, Aizen, who in base is stronger than all of the Espada by Gin, then goes on to evolve with the Hogyoku 4 different times, and then a 5th, which we don't actually
get to see.
It's very arguable to say that Aizen would absolutely destroy the Vasto Lorde form which fought Ukiura in any of his Hogyoku forms, yet we get to see what Dangai Ichigo does to a much stronger Aizen. Once again, he couldn't even sense Dangai Ichigo even before he went into his Mugetsu form. To further back the stuff that I've said, Aizen made contingency plans for Kenpachi, Yamamoto, and Ichigo, but nobody else. He was also confident enough to fight everyone after he transformed.
Yeah, I'll just take them all down myself.
Yamamoto and Ichigo. In fact, to go further with this, he even makes statements about Yamamoto being the only person in his way in his base form before reaching these Hogyoku stages, and he completely ignores Unohana, who is literally meters, if not kilometers away from him saying this.
Right, yeah, valid.
Aizen actually left Kenpachi and Wako Mundo to give him time to reach immortality so that he would be able to deal with Kenpachi later, and thus making sense as to why he left the number 0 Espada in Wako Mundo, rather than having Yami and Ukiura come with him once again.
Jeez, can you imagine if they did go, though?
Condescending tone, but Mr. Kubo did show us that Ukiura had a secret release form which none of the other Espada had. And we find out that Yami is the secret number 0 all along. He didn't just do this for the sake of wasting time drawing on paper. Like, it's there for a reason. These two are the strongest.
Yeah.
And not only do you have Ukiura, who is his most trusted Espada, and he sends him on more missions than anybody else, which is also followed alongside the statements made where Yami
he didn't like everyone very much.
he actually respects him out of all of the Espada. It is not only once again very consistent with the scaling, but it makes sense as to why Aizen purposely left them in Waco Mundo. They had a further job to do.
They had a purpose.
The manifestation of Yuhabak even makes an interesting comment towards Ichigo about him not being able to correctly holify, which means use this Vasto Lorde form at will. Which, if you were a person who was reading Bleach as it comes out weekly, you'd probably think, oh, this is the moment where he's going to be able to take full advantage of this form and then he can fight with it, right? I mean, we've just seen it against Ukiura. It's stated to be really strong. It's obviously very impressive, right, in every facet. And then later on we see that he ends up using a form like this against Yuhabak and the War Arc, right?
Yeah.
It would make sense at the time. But Zangetsu doesn't teach him this. Instead, they fuse together and become something stronger. Which, by fighting this fusion form over and over for 3 straight months,
which is a long time,
becoming one with his sword, his Asuchi, his Quincy powers, and the hollow powers inside of him, all of this training in the 3 straight months he spent inside of his head helps him attain his Dangai form and learn the Mugetsu. Once again, to end off this part of the video,
Dangai Ichigo is stronger than Vasto Lorde. Mugetsu is better than Vasto Lorde.
Which is in a completely different league of its own. Now, some may say that that was unnecessary to talk about, but I think it's cool because I can
gotta put it out there.
The Coffin in that conversation, and also bring up some new scaling around the characters at that part in the story.
Okay. Cool.
So some people might be wondering,
how does this Ichigo compare to Ichigo that fought Iwak?
At the end of the series, or full bring
Interesting.
Ichigo? Well, although I'm not going to talk about the end of series Ichigo much because that will be saved for Naruto vs Ichigo with Seth the Programmer, I will just say this.
Sick.
You'll find out the definitive answer when we make that.
And
there
it's
are
gonna be
a
awesome.
lot of statements made by characters like Yuhabak, side characters, and statements from novel/video games that need to be explained further.
That's gonna be sick.
Seth and I are actually coming up with completely new scaling for our video. Plus, I obviously don't want to spoil that video, regardless of whether or not he is or isn't stronger. As for the full-bring Bankai Ichigo that fought Ginjo and Quilge, it is established that the majority of captains have trained since the time skip. Byakuya and Renji have become...
I would say that full-bring isn't as strong as that form at Mugetsu.
And Yamamoto have not only stagnated, but it's confirmed their strength hasn't changed. In fact, Yuhabak believes Yamamoto is weaker than he should be in their confrontation, as he purposely refused to get his arm healed. But even with that being said, he believes he is the only Quincy who can control his Bankai's power, even in his nerf state, and without using his real Quincy powers, as his eyes are technically still closed up until his fight with Ichibe. And at that point, he still hasn't even fused with the Mimihagi yet. Anywho, having only one arm is extremely important because this could mean Yamamoto is 2 times weaker than before, and Kenpachi using 2 hands...
2 hands.
Noyatora, who went into his resurrection. Tosin confirms holification is comparable to Bankai. In fact, he's more confident in holification than using his Bankai against Komamura. So I don't doubt Noyatora is, in fact, getting an increase of power by around 10 times, as this is consistent with the multipliers of Seros, and also Grimjar states when he gets his arm back that his power has returned. Just like how Yami was actually going to be kicked from the Espada for only having one arm. Grimjar. It's a much bigger deal than people realise. There are countless examples of one arm being something Kubo places an emphasis on throughout Bleach, showing he has a true appreciation for the art of sword fighting. Anyway, I mentioned all of this because Mugetsu is stated to be the strongest thing in the Bleach lore during the Aizen vs Ichigo battle, which is fascinating because this databook statement is made while characters like Unohana, Yamamoto, and the Zero Division are all a part of the story. In fact, Aizen in his butterfly form actually thinks he is powerful enough to take them down, then battle Ichigo. He purposely wants Ichigo to attain higher power, as Ichigo's potential seems to impress Aizen more than the thought of the Zero Division. Ichigo's potential is even hyped up by Urahara when talking to Yoruichi, stating that his potential...
That's mad that it's like, I think he could become stronger than all these really powerful people, and I want to fight him.
Also above full-bring Bankai Ichigo, who, while damaged, was able to surprise Yuha Bark and damage him. Yuha Bark even makes a claim about it not being wise to fight him while injured in this form, implying if he wasn't injured, he could tussle with that nerfed form of Yuha Bark. Once again, let me be very clear, that form of Yuha Bark is nowhere near full power, but Ichigo can still damage him, and Yuha Bark specifically states he would be better off fighting him uninjured. You can see a very similar expression on the faces of the Quincy's and the captains when Ichigo appears in this form in the Soul Society. He even shocks Yuha Bark.
Everyone's like, whoa, okay, whoa.
That's how strong he is in this form, even while injured. Therefore, with the databook statement I mentioned earlier, Mugetsu is unarguably above full-bring Bankai Ichigo, as that form of Ichigo is weaker than not just two-armed Yamamoto, but one-armed Yamamoto.
I would have just kind of taken that as... Anyway, okay. This is covering it, it's cool.
Yuha Bark and Yamamoto in Bankai. Once again, to be very clear, this is a nerfed Yuha Bark that 1. does not have his Quincy powers, 2. does not have the Mimihagi amp, and 3. does not have his almighty ability. It's also confirmed word for word in other pages of the Bleach data books and other source material multiple times just how strong Aizen and Ichigo have become. But also Aizen, which helps scale Ichigo, as obviously
just has very big words.
Aizen.
Big words, letters.
Power has not changed during the time skip from the Karakura town battle between him and Aizen to the battle that he has with Yuha Bark, to the point where Yuha Bark believes that he is weaker than he should be, and Aizen believes that not just in his monster form or his butterfly form, right, but he believes in the previous forms before that he had already surpassed every Shinigami, which would naturally...
I'm stronger than all of you.
As he actually states that base to base he's unsure that he would win against Yamamoto, but he's extremely confident once he goes through his...
Yeah, once he goes through his transformations, he's like, no problem now.
Argument when Aizen makes that claim that he's unsure of the outcome, that this also includes what his thoughts would be in the future about how strong he would be with the Hogyoku, but there's no way to prove that he would have known how strong he would actually become, other than the fact that he's talking about
trial and error
right now. Like, he believes the two versions of them would most likely, it could go either way, right? So that's already an interesting claim. But when he does actually get the Hogyoku powers, which continuously surprise him, once again, he has complete confidence that he has surpassed every Shinigami, which helps a lot with his scaling, because if Dangai Ichigo is above the final form of Aizen, which is the monster one, which is beyond any of the statements that he made where he says that he has surpassed Shinigami and those, right? You have Dangai Ichigo, who scales above Monster Aizen, who scales above Yamamoto, who Yamamoto's strength hasn't increased according to Yuha Bark, which puts Dangai Ichigo in the position where...
Oh, that's interesting, but okay, I see where he's going with this.
They're having a very back and forth pitched battle. Once again, this is the nerfed Yuha Bark I'm talking about. And then he has Mugetsu on top of that. It's not crazy to say that Mugetsu Ichigo would have defeated the Yuha Bark that first appears in the
Right, okay, yeah, okay, give it that.
The wording in the thumbnail, which I'm sure a lot of you are curious about. Prime Soul King is a whole different animal, so I'm not going to say that Mugetsu stacks up to him.
Right.
He might be in the same ballpark of power when it comes to these kind of characters, but the databook statement about Mugetsu being the strongest attack in the Bleach lore is made while the Soul King exists as a...
Yeah, he's actually part of the story,
yeah. Mugetsu and Dangai, right, we already have Dangai scaling above the first Yuha Bark that appears, then you have Mugetsu, which confidently destroys that Yuha Bark. It's not that far-fetched to say that even without a time skip hypothetical power-up, with this databook statement and how much stronger Mugetsu is compared to any form of them previously, like the Dangai form, Yamamoto at full power, and all of Aizen's transformations, Mugetsu Ichigo should pretty easily beat the Zero Division, and also the Soul King that actually exists at that time. Once again, Prime Soul King's a different story, just like Prime Yuha Bark, with all of his power-ups and all the other things he gets later. That seems to be where he stacks up. To state this once more, Aizen literally created Wonder Weiss with the intent of sealing Yamamoto's Zanpaku toe, so he wouldn't have to fight someone.
Yeah, he didn't have to fight himself,
most likely beat him. And then when he reaches Transcendence in a form much weaker than Monster Aizen, he claims he has surpassed Shinigami and Hollows. As I talked about earlier, he even stops fighting in character, as there is no need for him to be on guard anymore.
Doesn't need to, yeah.
He's just that powerful. And no, bringing up Gin's surprise attack is a null point, as when Aizen actually tries, he one-shots him just like he did to
Luigi and Ishin. Poor Gin, he tried so hard.
Hit him off guard, it made his body explode, and even without the Hogyoku, still powered up, reformed, and came back stronger.
I nearly knocked my notepad out.
Even while off guard, you can't do anything to this dude. Also, to clarify, there is a silhouette of Ginjo shown when Yamamoto talks about Ichigo gaining his powers back, but what Yamamoto is saying is the Ichigo in front of him has regained the immense powers he had against Aizen, and the Ginjo part is saying his powers he lost in general. It would be absolutely ridiculous for Yamamoto to imply those Shinigami powers were of that level, as he swiftly dealt with Ichigo when he absolutely used his power, and before his powers returned, the almighty
Damn.
etc. Yet the powers that he has when he fights full-powered Yamamoto actually impress him. To end this point of the video, Mugetsu Ichigo is a high-tier threat even up until the end of the war arc, as even when Aizen comes back, Urahara is kind of unsure, but does imply Aizen has most likely become stronger than the power he had against Ichigo. Does that mean that he has surpassed him? As even Monster Aizen didn't surpass Dangai, let alone Mugetsu, where Aizen has the inner monologue stating that this dude's level of power is so insane that I can't even comprehend the dimensional plane that
it's beyond me.
Well, that's debatable. I would confidently state that Mugetsu scales above Yamamoto, majority of the Quincy's, if not every single one of them, due to the statement that only Yamamoto can contain one-arm Yamamoto's Bankai, and I'd say he is above the first version of Yamamoto that we see. Otherwise, giving him the benefit of the doubt against any other version of Yamamoto is just way too contentious, and I'm not going to make any objective claims about that. It just seems awfully consistent to say that that's where he's.
You do a very good job covering all this. Jesus Christ.
A lot of people still to this day,
how much stronger does Ichigo become?
Want to know just how much stronger did Ichigo
so what's the gap?
when he appears in his Dangai form, and then how big is the increase of power while he is in Mugetsu?
God.
Now the meta I have created to come to the answer is incredibly straightforward and has various factors that support this being the case.
Here we go.
On screen I've created a very simple chart that shows you the numbers, and this is how it should work. The transformation of Bankai is stated to be 5 to 10 times of an increase in power. Urahara compares Resurrection directly to Bankai. Tosen states his holification is better than going Bankai, as a Shinigami who has lived long enough to master his Bankai, and then goes into his Resurrection, showing that Resurrection would have a better increase in power than Bankai, or at least a solid times 10 if any Espada uses it, not say a Fraction, which seems to be the example shown to us when in data books it says things like a several times increase in power when it comes to Resurrection, which just does not make sense, as if captains are getting a 5 to 10 times increase when they go Bankai, yet the Espada are only getting a 3 times increase in power or somewhere around there, that means the captains are just slapping all the Espada.
Yeah, definitely.
So I believe that when you find statements that say several times or 5 times or anything,
don't take it literal.
It's talking about the absolute bare minimum and most likely referring to Fraction and their resurrections. And once again, like I said about Toros,
yeah, the Espada wouldn't stand a freaking chance, would they?
Espada, it just wouldn't make sense for it to be that weak. But anyway, Base Ukiura goes first release, making him 10 times stronger than his base. He then goes second release, which makes him another 10 times stronger,
on top, right?
Arguably even higher, because we don't actually know how much of an increase the second release is, and it does seem to be very special among the series, though I will stick to just times 10 to make this as simple as possible and not dive into headcanon ideas. This would make him 100 times stronger than his base form when he is in second release. 10 times 10 is 100.
Yes, it is.
Bada boom. We know that Seto Oscuras, Kuronre Zero, and Lanzaro Lampago all multiply his attack potency anywhere from 1 to 20 times, meaning even if you lowball the Resurrection to half, we still know the Vasto Lorde is around that 100 times multiplier and beyond, as it casually negates all of these attacks with casual Zeros, and especially keeping in mind that it wasn't going all out and also had half of a Shuhakusho on. The full Shuhakusho version of his Vasto Lorde form is actually shown inside of Ichigo's inner world during the Dangai and Mugetsu.
That looks so cool.
Basically, Vasto Lorde Ichigo is around 100 times his Bankai when it comes to power. Base Aizen and Vasto Lorde Ichigo are meant to be in the same ballpark of power by law. Aizen then goes through 4 transformations.
Amps himself quite a lot.
Around 10 times each, because the Hogyoku could easily perform a feat like this, considering it's stated to have immeasurable power.
Yeah, like you
and it
just
is
can't
that casually
comprehend.
Massive upgrades in power, and in Aizen's case, he is completely fused with the Hogyoku itself. To assume that it would have lower multipliers than Bankai and Resurrection would be pretty odd, to be honest.
That's strange,
In
yeah.
fact, I'd say that it would be higher
Higher.
than 10 times per transformation.
Yeah, you'd give it
But
more.
Once again, I'm going to lowball this for the sake of simplicity.
Okay.
This means that Aizen is arguably 100 to 400 times his base Shinigami
Jesus.
form, especially considering the fact that he actually believes he has surpassed Hollow and Shinigami. Dangai Ichigo, when he appears, is so strong that he can't
Oh
even
wow,
be
yeah,
sentenced by
think about
Quincy
that. Jeez, here we
Power,
go.
which is the final form that Aizen actually battles in before he is sealed. This means that Dangai Ichigo is tens to hundreds of times stronger than base Aizen and the Vasto Lorde, but more so leaning towards the hundreds. It also doesn't help the case that with Dangai Ichigo, throughout the majority of the battle, he isn't really even being
He's not
serious.
trying.
He's just mocking Aizen and occasionally flexing his power.
Catches the
But
sword
even with
like
that
he
being
did
said,
against
this
him.
unmotivated, bad mood Ichigo is still showing us these crazy feats. Then when he goes into Mugetsu,
Oh my god.
Aizen is so intimidated by this power that he believes he is an entire dimensional plane above
Dimensional.
him, making
Whoa,
it actually impossible to state how much stronger Ichigo is at this moment, as he doesn't really do much in the form except attack a single time.
Yeah,
But the Dark
doesn't do anything, it's just
the strongest in the entire story, the dimensional feats and the Sokyoku statement, means you could throw out a vapid number like thousands of times of an increase, or it's just completely unquantifiable.
I can't give it a number.
It is. It's unquantifiable.
Yeah.
Once again, if you're curious how much of an increase Ichigo gets in Dangai and in Mugetsu, in Dangai you're looking at
Hundreds.
hundreds of times consistently.
Right.
In Mugetsu, it's genuinely unquantifiable.
You can't do it.
Just know that the transformation of Mugetsu is pretty strong.
There you go.
Another really impressive feat from Dangai Ichigo that
Very.
coincides
The
with
word
his
very.
other insane dimensional tearing feats is when he casually stands inside of Aizen's Kurohitsugi and
Breaks
destroys
it.
it with his bare hands. Hado 90. Kurohitsugi, Black Coffin. This is Kurohitsugi performed with full incantation by a being who transcends hollows and soul reapers. It is a torrent of gravity that distorts space and time, a thing someone like you could never comprehend. Ichigo Kurosaki.
And then he just smashes it. If you say so, dude.
I will try my best to explain this ability and how it works in layman terms, so everyone knows exactly what Aizen is not only stating, but what he's actually doing. The Black Coffin, also known as Kurohitsugi, although on the outside appears to be this big, black, scary box that just appears and shreds apart the opponent's body once it is done, actually functions similarly to that of a micro-black hole. A black hole itself is a region of space-time where gravity is so strong that nothing, no particles or even electromagnetic radiation such as light, can escape
Nothing
from
can escape
the
it,
theory of
yeah.
general relativity predicts that a sufficiently dense mass can deform space-time to form what we know as a black hole. The Black Coffin appears to be based on this not
Black
only in its
Coffin.
name, but
Sounds
also in
something
traits,
so
as
metal.
it is similarly a compact ball of gravitational force, which virtually turns whatever is inside of it to dust just from the sheer pressure of the gravity, which is an aspect that Aizen emphasizes. You can already see the stark similarities between them, but I would also like to address that though the Black Coffin operates similar to a black hole does not necessarily have a set power. Black holes vary in range of size. You can have something as small as a micro black hole, one that is so tiny you wouldn't be aware of its existence.
Oh wow, okay.
All the way to a
Something
supermassive
there.
black hole, the same one that is
Supermassive black
theorized
hole.
to be the axis in which our universe
It's a
rotates
muse
around
suck.
due to its sheer density and gravitational binding
Oh,
energy.
baby,
The Black
don't you
Coffin
know
doesn't display nearly that level of energy, but it has shown
Sorry.
the capability to affect characters who can withstand attacks on a planetary scale, such as Captain Class.
Yeah, he's trying to push the fact that Ichigo just slaps this thing away.
It was even shown to be able to destroy the Mimihagi eyeballs completely to the point where there wasn't even debris in the area where the attack was used. And Aizen says, the gravity of Kurohitsugi has created a fissure in the canopy. It's a highly dense mass of reishi. Strike it once more with my spiritual pressure and it will destroy itself.
Damn.
And to go back to the Captain Class planetary argument that I briefly just mentioned, Aizen actually believed that it had enough power to affect Dangai Ichigo. Now, the fact that it didn't, that's completely fine, but we know for a fact that it actually would have killed the Ichigo that was in Karakura Town, as that Ichigo couldn't even do anything to base Aizen when he was in holification. So once again, I'm not saying his Kurohitsugi is a flat-out supermassive black hole when it comes to power, or it has infinite mass, meaning that Ichigo has infinite attack potency and infinite lifting strength, right? A lot of people tend to say silly things like that when it comes to black holes, and they usually misunderstand the science behind them. But realistically, the Kurohitsugi is doing exactly what a black hole does by nature, so we could literally say Aizen is summoning a micro black hole inside of this box, and this is why even when he can barely summon a third of its power in the Soul Society arc, it rips apart Komamura's body and one-shots him.
Right.
Let alone the perfect version, which
to prevent such a miracle from happening again, I will reduce you to atoms.
It's far above that of the previous planetary feats shown by weaker characters, or Ichigo blocking the Sokyoku in the Soul Society arc, etc. To all of the people who downplay this feat when people attribute it to acting like a black hole or genuinely being one inside of the Kurohitsugi, was scientifically incorrect, and this shows you how much of a monster Dangai Ichigo
It's ridiculous,
is,
yeah.
let alone Mugetsu. The fact that the Kurohitsugi is emphasized by other characters that have completely wiped the Mimihagi from existence is further proof that it is acting this way. They go so far to say that, well, the debris is even gone too.
Yeah, like there's nothing left.
And it's not like existence erasure is even uncommon in Bleach, as we seen that Tosin used Hado 54 Hyen on Grimjao's arm, which
Just
is
got rid of
explicitly
it.
stated to be a flame attack that eradicates the very existence of its target, along with other Kido that act in the same fashion. And also, the basic normal arrows that Quincy hews, those things actually existence wipe the hollows that they kill, which was even a narrative point in the story because they weren't killing hollows correctly, whereas Shinigami kill them a different way.
Yeah.
Like a further detailed explanation on the calculations and the scientific math for this Kurohitsugi feat, everything alongside supporting evidence is linked in the description.
Oh, damn.
People who bring up the mountain cutting feat as a
Oh, here we go.
to legitimately scale the power of Ichigo and Aizen sort of got me acting like... The best part about the infamous mountain feat isn't the act of destroying the mountain itself, it's how it gets destroyed. From them clashing blades in just casual sparring,
boom.
they are making
They don't even strike it.
not just break, but literally
It's destroyed.
evaporate without
Yeah.
the intent to even do it. For you to consciously state that this is a legitimate feat from either of them, and it displays the peak of their power or any substance of them truly going all out in these current forms, would mean you have to concede that Aizen has less firepower than second release.
Yeah.
Or even
True, because they had to hold back because they would have destroyed everything.
in his base form.
Yeah.
The same place that could fit thousands of those mountains inside. It also contradicts feats from the first movie.
I mean, it's cool, but yeah, that doesn't show how strong they are.
Entire dimension, which Mr. Kubo actually states is canon to the manga. And it also contradicts the Sokyoku statements from the data books and the manga, along with, obviously, if this Aizen scales above Mr. Yamamoto, that means he would scale above Yamamoto's ability to destroy the Soul Society in Bankai. You could always sit the Yamamoto argument to the side, but even with that being said, the other two examples still exist, so it's a massive sort of contradiction. I am beyond sick of hearing the mountain argument like we're still living in 2014. Get with the times, people. Please.
Very, very valid.
Quite a lot recently that the Mugetsu...
Whoa, they destroy mountains. Everyone's meant to hold back in the bloody, where the Espada are from in case they destroy it accidentally. And that's huge. That's really valid.
Is the one who taught Ichigo how to use it and confirms that he has used it in the past. I'll explain how and when Ishin actually used his version of the Mugetsu when I make a video on him, but regardless, there is no evidence other than the coinciding fact that when these two techniques are used, the individuals who use them lose their powers after. In Ichigo's case, he appears to be using a form that operates incredibly similar to Sergeant Komamura's Kokujo Tengen Miyaiho Dongai Jo. However, the only reason it appears in this Japanese-looking deity form is because it is a mixture of his Quincy powers, Shinigami powers, and Hollow powers
everything.
being combined all into one. Although there is no prerequisite that determines how a form looks in this case, Mr. Kubo just made it look incredibly cool, and we have seen similar looking forms from other Shinigami showing us that this isn't some Quincy technique or anomaly for that matter. To our knowledge as readers and watchers of Bleach, Ishin knows nothing about the Quincy or their practices other than what Misaki would have told him. And also, are people forgetting that for you to use a Quincy Lech Steel, you need to actually have a particular item for it?
Yeah.
The same item that the Quincy retired from combat due to the Volständig being superior. Although there is no databook information, author statements, or anything from the manga and anime confirming such, Dangai Ichigo is actually able to react to Aizen's reforming technique, which many believe to be teleportation. During Aizen's first transformation with the Hogyoku, he claims he has surpassed both Hollow and Soul Reaper, and yet this feat was performed in his third form of the Hogyoku, meaning he has far surpassed something as simple as teleportation, which Shinigami can actually do with the Kido technique Sentan Hakuja. I won't say for certain that this is legitimate teleportation, but if it is, this gives Ichigo absolutely insane reaction speeds in his Dangai form, on top of his sensory ability, which is underrated by many Bleach fans, and I've mentioned this in the past. The first thing Ichigo does when he appears in his Dangai form in Karakura Town is he scans the entirety of Karakura Town and can locate his sisters in an instant. Now once again, nothing is set in stone when it comes to the teleportation feat and whether or not it actually is, but Aizen has surpassed Shinigami at that stage. He has surpassed Sentan Hakuja, and he actually knows how to use that Kido too. So I'm just saying, if it is true teleportation, Ichigo's pretty quick. One of the biggest questions I'm sure that we've all asked
did Ichigo truly need to use it?
Oh,
well, yeah.
Aizen was, did he really need to use the final Getsuga Tensho against him? Interestingly, Aizen actually states that although he evolved into his monster stage, he still can't sense Ichigo before he even goes into Mugetsu.
Yeah, so, right. But did he need to go that far?
One might say this doesn't prove anything, as Aizen was still able to damage him with a Fraggle. It seems very logical to assume that Ichigo wasn't fighting seriously until the very end, when he wanted to end the actual battle. This is why he is able to then flex and break out of the floating white rings that Aizen formed around him while he had him by the throat. If Ichigo truly wasn't stronger in his Dangai form, he couldn't do that. It's just blatant common sense. It just seems to be the case that Ichigo wanted the fight over, and he was truly frustrated with Aizen. You can see this tone from Ichigo when he wants to actually end the battle with Aizen after defeating Ukiura in a battle that makes him uncomfortable when he realizes how the battle actually ended. And you also do need to keep in mind that Ichigo did just spend 3 straight months training with his son,
it's a very long
building
time.
a stronger bond with it, watching his father suffer so that he could hopefully do enough to defeat the tyrant that is Aizen, and he just wanted things to be over. For Ichigo to be messing around in Dangai, he would be incredibly conflicted with the idea that he's about to lose his powers.
Well, I suppose, yeah, it's like, damn, when I use this, it's gone.
Inside of his head, and learnt about the true thing that they want to protect. You can see this same depressed, exhausted expression from Ichigo's face after the battle with Ukiura, and during the entire battle with Aizen. He obviously wasn't going all out from the very start, and he just wanted things to be over.
Yeah.
To end this part of the video, as we do see later on, even while Aizen's entire body gets eviscerated, he can still reform himself. So regardless of Ichigo being stronger in either form, he did need to use the Mugetsu at the end of the day, but it would not have made a difference to the outcome regardless. He was just lucky that Urahara
turned up and was like, right, seal.
activate when Aizen's powers lowered to a certain point.
Certain level,
I'm
yeah.
sure Ichigo probably could have manhandled him in his Dangai form all day long and just continuously blow him away with Getsugas, but by doing this, it might have actually given Aizen the opportunity to transform multiple times.
Yeah, like go even stronger.
Because of this, Aizen would be incredibly frustrated, and his will would make it so the Hogyoku would continuously surpass the
keep making him stronger, yeah.
Whereas when he gets hit by the Mugetsu, he kind of just accepts that, well, this is over, and then the loneliness which Ichigo talks about is finally realized, and Aizen can't transform again in time to avoid the Kido seal. The safer bet, honestly, was just to use his magnum opus and try to one-shot Aizen.
Just try and take him out, yeah.
Ichigo is surprised that Aizen has the ability to regenerate from this, so he genuinely needed to use it, and thanks to Mr. Urahara appearing and activating that Kido, the day was saved. It still does suck that we never got to see him use a normal Getsuga Tensho while in Dangai.
That would have been cool.
The one he uses against Ginjo was like a damn Kamehameha, and that was done while he was in Shikai form. That thing would have been massive while in Dangai form. Like, I imagine it would have been the size of Boris's attack that he used against Saitama, like that kind of world-ending, devastating
clouds
size.
just gone.
It would have been cool. Really annoying that we never got to see that, or actually a longer fight. I feel like if Aizen versus Mr. Ichigo in Dangai form had it been like 15 plus chapters, no one would really complain about it because it was really short.
Yeah, it was tiny, wasn't it? It was just there.
Surrounded that final battle. Not necessarily that relevant to the point of this video, but I think we all agree on that. It should have been longer. But anyway, guys, this is all I have to say on Mugetsu. I hope you all enjoyed this video and potentially learned something from it. My next video will be on one of the most popular Espada, so you'll definitely enjoy that when it drops. So I decided to upload a filler video because I usually do stuff like that. But anyway, guys, I just want to say that I'm going to be live on Twitch right now, which is linked in the description below. So if you want to ask me any questions, you want to come hang out and talk about Bleach or inquire about this video, and you know, maybe you're a bit confused about some of the stuff that I said in this video and you'd like to get my straight up opinion or my actual explanation of what I meant if it wasn't clear enough in this video, go to the description, go follow me on Twitch. It is simply @Clyde, CLYDE. I am live right now, straight after the video is up, so come and hang out. And also, if you want to see a comprehensive
Seth's videos, yeah man,
specifically Aizen, because although I did touch on Aizen in this video, I haven't actually done a solo Aizen video, so if you want to see a very good video that talks about Aizen only, go check out Seth the Programmer's video.
Yeah, Seth's channel is good, man. It's got some really good stuff. Seth and Clyde really go in depth.
With that being said, I just want to say thank you all for watching and have yourselves a great day.
Sorry, I've had a couple of missed calls and a voicemail. I'm a bit like, I don't recognise the number in that. So, but you know when you get that, like, But anyway, that was really cool. I love how in depth it goes to, and the way that they scale stuff by using things that people have said, and then turn like feats from like the future and the past, and how certain characters scale up in certain areas, and that was really cool. And I look forward to more videos from Clyde. And there you go, guys. If there's been like videos not uploaded or missed out, it's because you wanted this. So it's your fault. So thank you guys very much for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys. Next time.